Tongke doje chajer zonron yunja mato dojo bonjomba surje lomba da varje peka chaje jabe jaldon guzhanza dorje janje telo naro tang marpa mala juje gambo ba pamo juba jawan gongba kaju lama nangje da joje da nan zera tongje da lama lopa la ye jiso zong Lo zong yong den jam zeng a la wan den de tong jin zhe be ge le zo da ge lo chu zhen zhou er zhen jia lab de so ju lam den zhou er zhen jia lab de lam zhe wa se er zhen jia lab de so zhe wa yi zhen jia er zhen jia lab de so dang ge den jian zhe wen jong ge ba me ba jie ba me ba da Wa mi ban zhuo mi ba ta de du me du jie me zhi ban jie zhe zhi dan ba zu bu san jie ma nan jie dan ba de lao zang za de zhen jian za ba la ma ji jie gu zong du jie zhen la da ge ju la bet da ge den ba dan sim jie jie dong jia jian ba zhe ba zhen jie lao de zo Namga dang nyambe simjin tamje je tongde tende lana me ba yang dabar zobu sanje je kamhang ramo chi tabar sha di ju de dambe ju gange zinde dong nyamzu lawar jo nyambe samba chanchon cho de simji ba dang chu nyimbe kunju da kunlong manur bo gun simbar cao tela kang simbar sawe chu ne damchi gongba jik bande re deninda dandala tata lintab ye bakaps papare ten lintab de la dorji song yibju hebdin yo pale ten tata dorji song judok baderes judok badela joda din ser nirang sangjin jor shibate ting ke yore
Cultivate a motivation, thinking, may all sentient beings, limitless as space, attain the state of perfect and complete enlightenment. So, for listening to the Dharma, think that for this purpose, I'm going to listen to the Dharma and then engage in practice. So, such a motivation of bodhicitta is the unmistaken motivation for listening to the Dharma, and the Dharma we are listening to is the Gong Chik, the Buddha's single intent. We are now in the supplement, which consists of 47 Vajra statements. And now we are in Vajra statement 16. It says, because Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas possess the cause for Buddhahood, it will be the essence of final awakening.
Dandala ni rang shibandala tene jerdan into taranjar chancho samba ser yondu loy top chitone jo yong yore chebarde loy top shibanda loy top chechong simji chechong ke chanro yorwa yina yang tene nintu taranjar tamjela Sanje ke joyo be tarto sanje rogri song goya de karere shubayina yang dala mambo je ke o nintu ranjar se na dene ta sanje ke yo mares de so sanje je matab jumsin de karere se na ta tela long andria yore long tone shubayina tambo darade 틱둑 저바즈도 다 롱드 코랑 바졌잖아 요즘에다 냐완로와 산제차 냐완로와 산제라 띵지기지 마인테 닌투 타네 랑산제 사니타네 띵지게 송주다 틸롱데 이비아메네 공반던로 요래 다냐와래 지송와이나 대상제지 그게 말이지 간시나 냐와래 진로한데요 되네 동아 다지 딕바 다사게 사자직 차도 요래시 되네 딕바 다두 Teni Ramji Sanji Sala Jenoguri. Da Nintu da Ranjar Jibanda da Digba Takpar Sibala Nyawala ya Machi. Tikba Jancho Sen La Soba ke Simji Jachimbo me du Sanje ke Salandro Maranata. Tijum Singh da the Rek Chepa no Sanje ke Rek Che Sunga Tabaji Ris and Tadai Dunki Yores.
Ti Dunki Tigi Tira Pen Long Tira.
Long Tela Yayan. Long take Tunda Temar.
Mission Long Shishapatira.
Yes, Tela.
So in verse 16, so it says that the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas possess the cause for Buddhahood. It will be the essence of final awakening. So we speak about the Shravakas, the Pratyeka Buddhas, and the Bodhisattvas. And this division is made based on the strength of their mind. And what that means is the mind generation, how vast their mind is. So the Shravakas and the Pratyeka Buddhas, they do possess in their mind the cause for enlightenment. So eventually they will attain enlightenment. So this is what Jikten Sumgön is asserting, because there are many who say that the Shravakas and the Pratyeka Buddhas are cut off from enlightenment. They will not attain enlightenment. And so the reason for them saying that is based on a text, a Mahayana text that says, to be born in a hell is not an absolute hindrance for attaining Buddhahood, but the stages of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas are such absolute hindrances. So this text, this quotation in this text is the basis for them maintaining that Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas do not accomplish Buddhahood. And so that is because they are not born in hell. So actually they say to be born in hell is not an absolute hindrance, because hell to them is a place where we can purify our negative karma, our obscurations. And then once these are purified, then gradually one can progress toward enlightenment. But then they say that the Shravakas and the Pratyeka Buddhas, they do not have the karma to fall into hell. So in order to purify their remaining negativities, they are not born in hell, so they don't purify. But also they do not cultivate a vast motivation of bodhicitta, and therefore they also will not attain enlightenment. And so that is why some say that they are the family that is cut off from accomplishing Buddhahood.
Ta kantar sanje kirei hibanda la tapu tarjin ant sola rain ye zam yoko yore de yin yang rei ganda jo ji yin sen yang tarto sang meje ba je yu sigmare la de ta we je khelang so na de sanje ke namba sanje ba ke dara yunglo ni he ba ke di da tungo yo mare de da man tunbe jimsin kan is na ye za chane simchin tamje la rek devar hibuning bo rakam devar hibuning bo song tarjina na de ke yongso jobala chap de yo song yorwa de da chon zom goya ka he je yore da de zom man zom ke chebar je yong ko yore jerdang jo dekhi ning bo ste ta simchin tamje la yo de ba da tabu tarjina na koram de na ya yore jo ne dekhi ning bo te jine gevshini tamne de dangwa drev zob sanje jin steam lurin chin saro dan de tab ngan ro je chun zom yong bai na dan da la damjur job je cham mulurun bo ches da de ndu tinang ge je de king bo si ban de mili ke simchin je yo mare ta na but trauma sunjula dekhi nimbo yore Ti jumsene dene yintu tarang sanje shibande sanje ke rek che sungba ji risena dene namba sanje bu yunglo nana de kwa linor che sungba ji chaka yores.
So regarding the this family, like the Mahayana family, for example, the jewel ornament of liberation lists 4 different families, but even the worst of families, if one were to claim that even the worst of those families, those kinds, cannot attain enlightenment, then actually such a claim does not agree with the teachings in the Buddha's in the scriptures. And that is because also the jewel ornament of liberation says that all sentient beings possess Buddha nature. So in terms of family, they are of the same kind, the same family. Buddha nature pervades all beings. And then, of course, to attain enlightenment, there is various conditions that still need to come together. And this is what makes the difference, but not when it comes to the cause. So the jewel ornament of liberation gives this order of conditions that need to be complete. And so there it says the cause is Buddha nature. And the support is the precious human body. And the condition is the spiritual teacher. And the method is the teacher's instructions. And the result is to attain complete enlightenment. So then when all of these, when we have certain criteria together, first of all, we have a precious human body with 18 freedoms and advantages. In terms of the cause of Buddha nature, there is not a single sentient being who doesn't have it. For example, even a little ant has Buddha nature. So therefore, if one would understand the scriptures, if one would interpret certain scriptures to mean that the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas are cut off from all families and they cannot attain enlightenment, so that understanding would be mistaken.
Ona tara tikduke nderwa nangtana nyawan rowas ta nyawala jewan de sangjezi ke tinji ke mari de nintu tang rang sanje ke sani bonde sangje ya ke tinji ke ri songso de ke gungba de jetawri long de donda kare re sena dan de donda de ta simjin kawang muba manda wa yobala tinde teni lamsang che samba ja chewa sancho jok chodoyang semji menu meta teni donga la yang jeking trapa te tabri dewala teni sanje ke tabke la tuji chimbo ke wang ke teni dara che donga tele par ngar so wa kchi de teni tele tuba ke chu ko lo kor yo maris te ndu che ngarso jaksan rawo che teri ma doke tani kozo tini sangma je ba maris dan de ting sangwe gon ngarang zo pe ya hyper na che dunta chek la ngarang zo ke ta dunta chek ne hyama tro la le ka chanyang le yong na nyima chek la ngarso che yorwa za nyima ta la ngarso che yoda yoba de ke tik dunta je ma la yang le ka hyuk ja ne le thoba tike zoptan ro chi ruwa te na ye ta sanje ke salan ro wala teni ngar so sa ke tiwe sina ngar so sa ke tanda ke sa je cha de yoris.
So the text that we just recited from, quoted from, is the condensed vehicles or the condensed yanas. And so in there, basically in that quote, it says that hell is not an ultimate hindrance, but entering the path of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas is a hindrance to enlightenment. And so how can we understand the intention behind this quotation? So sentient beings are of different mental capacities or kind of dispositions and aspirations, and due to that, some are simply not able to cultivate this vast intention of bodhicitta right away. And many beings experience a lot of fear of suffering. And so with great compassion, the Buddha therefore gave skillful means to provide a resting place for those who are overcome by the fear of suffering. And so for the sake of those individuals, he turned the wheel of Dharma a certain way. And so therefore we can understand these states of Shravakas and Prateka Buddhas to be like resting places. But that does not mean that they ultimately will not attain enlightenment. They are just temporarily resting. So there's one good contemporary example. For example, people usually go to work in a week of 7 days. 6 days they go to work. And then on the 7th day, like on Sunday, they're resting. They're off work. And then that gives them kind of the energy to, again, work well the next week, the next 6 days. And so they are able to do their job that way. So it's a bit like that. The Buddha, in a way, they say that the Buddha also provided this place for certain individuals as a resting place.
Tani da ten kandar jumtsi mambu gone nintu darang sanje to so tani rek chepa mare si sanje ki jod din de tarto sanje ji komba togore songko yore de ten zo chi hyu je dara Gong Chik nanande tikpa tamje rek je tikpa yin song ne dorji song je song so tani gangla de dang tani jambaran sinju nando tikpa sumgi ngimjong la tikpa chicken rebe ne song tatsu tonda chikpa chada yore tikpa chicken rebe ne hibanda tarto ta sanji je kompang tubzi ke jo chada yore song re rebe de ya min tab ma tab zang chepa re ma to ke ten du nga cho ke yang nin tu darang sanje se de ta tengsang ro na cherdang de nin tu ren de rang sanje re se ma do ke yewan ro hira yong ko yo ma re ko tu dang ju chon jo wan ro on de ma do mu ma ro na sanje ko yo de ba kap so de ni nin tu dang de ni tik chin se na chepar ji yo de ba re 대인도 대니 산제지 공바 제다와 이 말롱바 탐제게 대인투스는 배 독자노 휴마즈나 코소라 란동 입지게 삼노마도 요마레세 드나벤도도 대니양 산제게 다라데 다보름 버체게 숨바나 이 취인의 마제나 취지 열랄 민송도 세 드니 취는 초미게 삼노 덴진에 드니 드나빈도도 딜톱 디톱게 드니 간살라 드니 드나게 체버신도 드니 양고 디바 종용고 여러와 대소 담제 그 찬이다 친구요 바제 디자인 송용고 여러 나라
So there are many reasons why one cannot say that Shravakas and Prateka Buddhas cannot ultimately attain enlightenment, that they are, again, a family that's cut off. Mainly, also before we have said in one of the Vajra statements in the Gong Chik, he said that all the vehicles are of one family. And also in the Manjushri Namasangiti, it says that the renunciation of the 3 vehicles has the result of a single vehicle. So, which means the result of a single vehicle means that ultimately they all become a cause for attaining enlightenment. And the only difference lies in when or whether this result will ripen or not, or the cause will ripen into that result, but there still is the potential to attain enlightenment. So nowadays, actually, we don't really make much of a difference between the Shravakas and Pradeka Buddhas and so on. But at the time of the Buddhas, and now the times have changed, when the Buddha was alive, there was a big difference between the Shravakas and the Pradekas and the Mahayana and so on. And so now when we look at that, one might think, if one doesn't really understand the enlightened intent of the Buddha, then one might think that the Shravakas are not good because all they think about is themselves and so on. But Khenpo also said, if one doesn't practice the Dharma in accordance with the Dharma, then that Dharma itself will become the cause for falling into the lower realms. So that is if one is holding on to fixated ideas of one is higher and one is lower, one Dharma is higher, one Dharma is lower, and so on. So to such a person who holds such a view, they will accumulate more negativity. So that's a point to understand.
Teni da the pe yan song go yor pe de meta chung ji teni gramji yan chi ne me chimbo ji jurwa na yin ge den into darang sanje to so tar teni thipa chimbo lam la hyo ne teni changje ro ri song yan de ha go go ya kar chimbo yor ona teni thipa chimbo sin miksa ke mandawa che go mandawa ro samna nde mare nde mai ba jimsi Nin tu dang rang sanje korang zog di lang diga rang ni da zob sanje ju gongpang si ban de top to yo ma ri song re ma to ke korang zog da korang zol sangje ju mi hibe ti do ma ri si korang zol lam de la dane lam tini lam de la hyong ne da gedo dipang ji en du dane rem ji da nyam to ba tamje ya na par ne compare do du teni lo de remji ja cher cher ro ne teni hirap de ja cher ro du teni da o ta thiba chimbo ke teni sa da lam da pang do go yong tin tamje ha ko teni de ha ko du teni ti lam la shok ne teni remji ya da sanje sal pa de ya ru da te yo re sta te in za Tata ngarang zondawa ji na lower de nintu da ranjar rang sanje ga lamla hyok suma ina teni chung gare yore sina yang sangje wala yun bon gondro ya chung de cha ga yorwa kain sina yanjar tser tiba dara de jancho simba lamla hyong do go yorwa ta tiba chimbo sina jancho simba ga lamla hyong do go yorwa da tere da dusu kola Tene Shepjing Tawa Tara Hirsin Mundo Jin Tosona da Shepcha Mambo Hyu Songo Yore Gahe da Tiba Chimbo la Hyongne Yang Tiba Chimbo ke di lo de Tara di Samba Jachewa to so ke samno ke chi machine o tesa gawa tuguri simjin tamji gawa dar tuguri samsan lo jin du tene ma nin tu galam hyong do mo da yure sene da reki mambo yore de gantar ngarang so da namba sanje ba ke chugi nimbo sanchu samba yen ba de hakko tsare de hakko go yindola tene yang random yibzi zo je ne tene nin tu taranja la hyong de wa ina de yang ko ala yuren do mar sangje ba la yuren do gondro wa de inza yang lang de la hyog go ya ro chi cha ga yo mar is sangje bi chi de
For example, if you have a small spark of fire, then that slowly becomes stronger and stronger. So just like that, the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas do ultimately they will enter the path of the Mahayana and then attain enlightenment. So that's important to understand. So what is he saying here? Being cut off from the Mahayana family, it basically means that by only following the path of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, only through this path alone one cannot attain complete enlightenment. But it doesn't mean that they can never attain enlightenment at all, such an individual. It is just that through their particular path, they cannot attain enlightenment. So they enter their path and they practice virtue and they abandon non-virtue and so on. And in this way, they gradually, their realization increases, so that gradually their mind becomes more and more vast. And in this way, also wisdom becomes more and more vast. And so eventually, as wisdom becomes vast, they will enter the path of the Mahayana, and then gain the qualities of abandoning other paths and so forth. So they enter that path and gradually they practice until they attain enlightenment. So then what would be the fault if we, like right now, would enter the path of the Shravakas or the Pratyekas? The fault would be that it would take a long time to attain enlightenment. Because in order to attain enlightenment, eventually one has to enter the path of the Mahayana, the path of the Bodhisattvas, and cultivate bodhicitta. And so that point is explained in great detail in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, and also the Ornament of Manifest Realization Sutra. When one enters the Mahayana path, the reason why it might be hard is because one might wonder, how can it even be possible to liberate all these limitless sentient beings? And so there are many commentaries that explain then why one then would enter the path of the Shravakas and the Pratyeka Buddhas. But now we know that the essence of the Buddha Dharma is bodhicitta, so we have already understood that point. And if we were to consider our own benefit most important, even though we already know that the essence of the Buddha Dharma is bodhicitta, then it would be like entering the path of the Shravakas and the Pratyekas, and that would mean that enlightenment would still take a very long time. But it doesn't mean that these kind of individuals can never attain enlightenment. It just means that in order to attain enlightenment, we cannot just follow this path.
Tati o the dorji son judo batere dela corrigan so juden batere. Oh, juden batere do. There dene ta de juba charser ko antami yi son bandere. Ta den jiktin son go yibara juba charser ko antami yi son ande. Dene dela da yinke kowa de tayu yinba tone jimtsi mambo je song yogo yore da ying sungba de soyang de rayo ba ke de tedin kala da nelok da din de ba mambo yore yena yang jitin sungong ke tuksam tongsa de des ying tuksam tongsa da manda ba tone song song are ma do de so
So then next is Vajra statement 17. It says, Samsara is limitless and without proliferation. So this is Jikten Sumgön's view. And other people claim that samsara has limits or that it doesn't have limits. And so other people's claim or claims, there can be some truth to other people's claim, but Jikten Sumgön here also has a slightly different intention. So in general, however, there is not much difference. It's the same.
Teni dolan chi de ta sosok ke tamja ro ji zongo ra o ko ala ta yo de mis te zong de de jian ko ala ta mi si se bra re le de nan ta yo per na mala re ba ta we je zong de 양제 소속 라비아데 대서 참선 Drigung 저 용거 요르데 다 간다르 코알라 타 요르 미리 송 드라 잉게 송바데 간자르 처스 자르든 송용바 다위 차로도와 Jikten Sumgön daran koala tami songyongwanda di korang la toni sam dan toksan yi sondwa dere ya de indu da dambo yin ge yi chor de hyuba na de yin ge junsi na ba nga toni hyo yore songko yore dambo de kareresna koala ta gondo se ta na da lebjin se du sanje jomden de la kutse kambo la ta 차도 그왕게 깔레 때도 직대로와 니반네 공게다 협수 데로 주니살아 협수 제네 제 갈롱르 버카마 세와다 도소 탐지라양 산 데니 산제럽에 무슨 로다 혁침보 혁스마 간자리데 이나 코초
니가로
직대다 차도 그왕게
니가 록다 기라
직대다 로다 렙진다 로다 제나 코 차도 그왕게 차도요 gelong le bakar ma si de ko lo da ji song ro ta te de so la ya san je ge ngu dang yu ne ma je koran zo la nam ji la ta san je de de ro ba ji song ko yo re song de we na ta sim jing de ta la ji la ko wa la ta yo na yin da le yo de yo sim ro song ko yo ro ba ji de
So there is a lot of discussion, a lot of debate about whether or not there is an end to samsara. So samsara is limitless, means there's no end, endless. So when we were studying, there was a lot of debate about whether or not samsara is endless. And so when one is debating, one kind of puts forward to the other person, I guess, a statement, like a challenge. For example, saying that in general samsara is endless, but then in a particular case like Milarepa, for example, there is an end, and so forth. So then one debates. So the reason why there's a difference here is because the people that claim here that the samsara has limits or it does not have limits is that they are thinking about certain individuals. So to some it has an end and to some it doesn't have an end. But what Jikten Sumgön is saying when he says that samsara is limitless or endless, he's speaking not from the perspective of the individual, but he's speaking from the perspective of samsara itself. So from the perspective of samsara itself, it is endless or limitless. And so first, there are 5 reasons that illustrate kind of the point of those other people's claim. And the first one is that samsara has an end. So people claim that samsara has an end because the example given is Devdatta, who spent his entire life, many years with Rinpoche, but he was very jealous and he caused a lot of trouble. And then the other one was the Gelong Lekbegarma, who was an attendant of the Buddha for 12 years, and he developed wrong views toward the Buddha. So these two are taken as an example, and it is said that even individuals like that ultimately can attain enlightenment. And so since even people like that can attain enlightenment, then no need to mention all other samsaric sentient beings.
Tene jumtsi nipa ante kararesena san darade sanje jomden de garsi nzabelende la mazumba yina yan rasi ta sungba rewa sungba yina yan rasi simjin tamje la rakam debar hibu nyingbo yores tela tene ko ala joa jewa dang nyangelen de ba lan dunba jeya nyangelen de ba ko pa yan dunba jeya dige samnode yores ti chane 제 고아세 반다 타진 리바드 요반 요고 요레서 데니 다 준신 숨바데 다 라이도 그 심진 가레더 세나 양다 심진 야지 망른 로로야 로요 마레스 마뇽른 로로야 요레스 데라 베 다다송 거 요르다 망른 로야미 뇽른 로로바데 간이 드롬용 거르스나 다 가르장 산제 동자니 요르바 디 동자니 다라다 담보니 바 숨바 손자 이바르와 다라데 가르장 남리 이발 토도 요라 다 마음발 산제 동자니를 망아직 손을 송요 말에 되네 다 대근 돌문이 밖에 심진제 미바 제 차도 요래 대인자 되네 다 심진 거랑랑 이건 요런로도 단 거와 대한 다 진제 연구도 없어 대송 거요.
Second reason they're giving for their claim that samsara must have an end is that now if whether the Buddha appears in this world or he doesn't appear in this world, sentient beings possess Buddha nature. And because of that, they naturally have a wish or like a sadness with the suffering of samsara. And they have a wish to achieve the peace of nirvana. And so for this reason, there has got to be an end to samsara. And then the third reason is that there are all the sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. And no matter what they do, sentient beings will never increase in numbers. There will never be more sentient beings. However, the number of sentient beings can be reduced. So there can be lesser sentient beings. For example, in this aeon, we speak about over 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate aeon. And 3 of them have already appeared. And now this is the time of the 4th Buddha. And then there's more to come in the future. And so then whatever sentient beings have not yet been able to be tamed, then remain for the next Buddha to tame them. So as that happens, sentient beings can only decrease in numbers, but they cannot increase in numbers. So that's the third reason for claiming that samsara must have an end.
Oh yeah, 다 이게반데 때다 라원라오지 간다 로아라이도데 책 심진 살바지 가힌 흘는 코르도고 로아라이도는 코르도고 요 말와시 심진 코랑 페나 간자다 비체 데니 라이올라지 라이얼니양 페나 라마인라지 라마인 메올라지 메올니 냐와야다 돈로라 소발라른 지코 코르코라자는 코르도긴데 심진 코랑을 와시 대마도 바게 대마이 심진지 살도 쳐라는 코르도 요 말와시 대중진을 때네 양 가르스나 대 심진도 야지 망이야로 미비 중진을 때네 장크 돈네 양 되네 코알라 타진 코아든 타진 거래서.
And the fourth reason is quite similar than the previous one. It also has to do with the numbers. And so there are all the sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. And there's not going to be a new sentient being appearing out of nowhere and starting to wander around in samsara. But how we wander around in samsara is, for example, one individual wanders around. And one time, then that individual takes birth in the God realm, and then the next life in the jealous God realm, and then as a human being, and then in hell, as a hungry spirit, as an animal. So in this way, this one individual is going around in circles in samsara, is wandering in samsara. But it's not that there suddenly appears a new sentient being who kind of takes the wandering on and then continues to wander and so on. So that does not happen. There's no new sentient beings appearing out of nowhere starting to wander in samsara. So in terms of numbers from this perspective, it is that because the number can only decrease and not increase, there has to be an end to samsara. There is an end to samsara.
Tene danga ba de tene long dang ga dang tin ju tam je na da song ko yore song dang ko ase je de ta yo ba de so ben de song ko yore ta de ndu ga dang ko ase wan de la ta yu go se wan de ta gan za la ye ya de song yong ko yore ten ko lan khor ji de yang Jikten Sumgön ko thumang mayen ba gi chot de korwe jamso luni korwai sonsowa tandem jumjum malare bakan datawe je sungko yore jiktin sunggung ganda sungko yore mato ke bacher ta mambo je ke koalan kontu ke the same day in samdeva titola ta gomba dando yore dara ngaso ke tini lunkor se kowande koala lunkor shibande dorju luk hache trabo ke zalong ku lundu so tamjala gondo sarwa gomba te ta tone hyurwa teni tendu mato ke tin sakje je pombo rakban so kondu se je ke yo mare ko ngarangso wok cheba da nyamde yang me karasho koro de ko anjong la part-time ro wa tin tajin ro cha ro de in za dan daran jiktin sunggung ke yi ba de jetawa yi ma yu bu ngun de yang jiktin sunggung ke gong ba yi gong ba tar de kel da yin kin tam je ke yang de he ja da jing ze ke yo re
Jikten Sumgön kompa de kelen kenten so. Konso yang
de he de
de tigyakara. And then the fifth reason that samsara has an end is that because it is said so by the Buddha, and it is mentioned in the scriptures and in the treatises, the commentaries, that samsara has an end. And so saying that samsara has an end, again, is a statement that is based on the individual, so for an individual. And now, in terms of Jikten Sumgön's intention, in terms of who is the one wandering in samsara, we have mentioned before that Jikten Sumgön said that it is the body that wanders in the ocean of samsara. And so also it corresponds to a statement by Milarepa, and also Jikten Sumgön said that. So most people naturally might think that it must be the mind that's wandering in samsara. But saying that it's the body that wanders in samsara refers to the subtle Vajra body of the channels, winds, and drops. That is what's wandering in samsara. It's not the coarse material body that we have, because that coarse material body will perish once the breath has ceased and the 5 elements have dissolved. So then next is an explanation on Jikten Sumgön's unique position here. So there's the commentary, the explanation by all of those who follow the enlightened intent of Jikten Sumgön.
다 담보 되시나 다라 코르janso luni 코르시 반다 빼는 알아서 직진되네 챔피언로드 드닌 첸달랑 알아서 그디 주보데가라 박차 휴지 야야바 박차 땡사보 휴지 야안두 데네 람상 파르드 네갑서 왕보 군상세네 데네 양 루지 람상 드럼 거도 이루지 단데 또나 도르줄루 차다 거데 대용에 휴니마도 그때들 도르줄루세네 타니 따가마라 도르줄루 데 제당게 이루스마라고 차다 요로와 다 간다 가와치와라나 딜란 루직 드럼도 요래 데 따라 파르드네 갑사 데는 야르네 갑사야 양 루직 드럼도 요래 루직 드럼 용와텔 티네 테네 다 냐와케 나니 테네 베 조색라서 동한 용사 그 예제 요거와 동한 용사 그 예제 요바데 가르스네 다 이륜라오데 차다 요래 다 이륜라오데라 임베 짐신라 티네 다랑 아랑초 그 주본데 벤나 마체케 티 나큰 주모체 팟제 소아이나 테네 양코 람상서 수트고 말와 데 냐르네 갑스 람상서 순로도와 난데 레지 tok drobyong ba ki yulu zelan ro te chan do yor te ta te udi ta jiktin sung gung gung ba de ta da yong do yor ka hin sna ro re dok ta gawa chi na ya ngarang chu to ba sa san ro ta nya wa le chi na lu yu da mi sam to ba che ju ma to ke yida dang tu ro nen kala job yada tantine tunro tamle ngarang sungu sutong do to so la lumi sersa yo marwa te malan yo ba ta che kare yori tara kamsom se zumi kam se ta tel lu zo yu mi se de ta tinana chu ngomban zo to sunana sungo yore to so la zo hajang chawichane zumi si tanye ta yaba yin si
So regarding the statement that it's the body that wanders in samsara, so when we die, we pass from this world. Then first, before we die, while we are alive, we have created very deep and very powerful imprints of having a body, having this body. And then due to that, in the bardo, it is said one has all faculties complete. So one instantly creates a mental body, not a physical body, but a mental body. And so when one realizes the nature of this body, it's called the Vajra body. But so generally, it is called a mental body that we have in the bardo. And then this mental body takes birth anywhere and then creates a physical body. So that's in the bardo. And then when one takes birth in hell, for example, one creates this hell body. And in this hell body, one experiences the suffering of hell, like being burned and so forth. So this body, which is like a mental body, is like the foundation, the basis that is like a support that experiences our suffering. So just like in the body that we have now. For example, if somebody were to cut off all my fingers now, he couldn't just put them back on. But in hell, when a body part is cut off, then instantly it is restored. So it's due to a certain karma that one has such a body in hell that one's body parts are instantly restored. So it's kind of like a mental body. And so Jikten Sumgön's intention really corresponds to reality, because now wherever we are born in the 6 realms, for example hell, we sometimes wonder now whether or not one actually has a body in hell. For hungry spirits, that is more clear. There's, for example, the sky-faring hungry spirits, and then obviously there's the animals that have a body, and then there's the human beings, we all have a body. So saying that like a mental body, a formless body, what that really means is, so there's the 3 realms in samsara: the form realm, formless realm, and the desire realm. So regarding the body that one has in the formless realm, it is said in the Abhidharma Samuccaya that the body in the formless realm is so extremely subtle that it is called formless.
Tata dangen rikhe jatang tarawa jab suwa yina. Ona tara ngara su donghu yura taba ngam litin borse sim litin mani labdoha sipa parmato pardin negas sipa parmato ngunje ngam mani sim ngam litin borse sim litin mani sipa parmato nyamngawa changla jabdang joba me ba gongdang pungni me ba hunji sajab me ba hunji sajab senta sendala mlu tomdose tene gewa sana dipa pa pangwa sai be ke given de me du never saj give sajam hunjula tipa similar sipa pa manyanga chala jam godon puni hunji give ramdanyowa ta give ramdanyowa se de tarangara so celende pandema tamje gi chi do ngo molan dondo yora ta tera do mana mis geveran nanya mi Mention dupe pombo. Chowa donga jarangi. Jikten chunang nawa. Chakto kom sumje donwa. Cece lang nipa meba. Ta data donga huje yoba ji sondo dinang de ta simility mani said carelaris. Ta derado dwando ji some dongo yorwa. Then the asta de pacher di simility mani said jiwa ji malangba. Jiwa yimba ji malangba ndala. Gong yo deba. Ji rindo ta ti ton ji doban ji san. Tene din Jikten sungong sunya ke lunin korwa yin seba dela ji doban ro sanane dara dela par de hit rajaya ndo te mayimba dal kowa jam solo lun kogo mari sene mixa ke ji dubzin ro pache he gon kala kapo cha de yorwa den zang tene kowa la lun korgo yoris kowa la lun korwa ndela kurzi ge jujin zo de sem ke bakcha yang ro yoris lun de la bakcha to bo ya de ran yin ke tene ne kawachi na di lu de drum de yoris.
So there's one recitation, a practice that we always do for the people who have passed away. And so in that practice it says, you have left behind your old body and have not yet found a new body. And so you're wandering in the bardo of becoming, and you are without protector, without help. You are destitute. And you cannot rely on any previous accumulations. So what that means is that while one was alive, one has not practiced virtue or abandoned non-virtue. So one doesn't have any accumulations, any virtues that one brings with one. And then it says, and you have no one who dedicates for you. After someone dies, we dedicate for them. So some have no one who dedicates for them. So here you are in this body of 4 aggregates and a name, and your experience is a feeling of great suffering and fear. You experience the suffering of the confused manifestations of your own mind, of hunger, thirst, and poverty, and your lifespan is uncertain. And so from within this verse here, where the question really arises is, you have not yet found a future body, so you have not yet taken birth in a future life. So this corresponds to the doubt as to whether or not the body wanders in samsara, as Jikten Sumgön maintains. And so some say that it's not the body that wanders in samsara, but actually that would be very difficult to actually prove, to maintain such a opinion. It is the body that wanders in the ocean of samsara, and the body is the cause of wandering in samsara. So it's mainly those imprints of the body that we place in the mind, and that lead us to a certain future location, and then again in that place we create a body.
Heri ta den de pardo la lu yu de yu kaensna mi yin de pumbo la yu dos dene da den za deri dan de la teni yang ga he ge dan ji tin sung gong ge gong ba yi ya wen on ko la ta yo ma ri das maybe jim sing de long de song ge yo re jin re ze ge papa jin re 네 공개 되는 산지 오바면 되네 다 산지 오바면 산지 마분 되네 되네 담지에네 되네 심진 담지 동하래 드라마도 봐도 되네 공다 간단 공부를 좀 산지 means 때 답을 토네 teni kong simji mambo de donga ge jam sole darne teni ang sis de raben kong da ru na de zo na ruo ta le zen ni song da sa cha je zen ra wo je song ge yor de dong to la da nyam ja yi hi de na ne zai ju wa zen de da rong da simji zhang me ba je yu de wa teni de le teni kong te sa da chi tam ja de la ta ngarang zu parke ro hyuba na ta parke che hyo go ji mo tok jo an ro ji ji ne ta da jong du ti wang ge teni kong ge dang bo tok ji du gar si nge sim jin da tham je san je ji sa la go ma ta ba da ran dong tem de zan ji wa na kong wo cha ba ja ra ge he song ne kong te ta ba dam je ya res ta de de kong teni dara sim jin ta mi ba de zai ndu tok jo a ji ne ta kong ran dong chu ge jar sa la nyek su na ga sa re gong te re de teni ti kong ge de wa la ta na wo chuk che hyar shi ba de de wo de cha ba mang bo je ga so a ris teni san ji o ba mi phem ne teni wo de so la yang chur jar ze ne teni ta wo cha ba de so chur jar ndu teni wo dara de cha ris ka wo ji teni ti ga la san ji o ba me ge wo ta na ji du teni wo chuk chik hyar ro
나 조직 여러
아
디문나 가져도
한번
한번 찍으라
늘 거는 샤지라
가지라 이렇게 자도 초자서
디 제데 나온다나 때 야본도 디는 차바 자송도 데 만나감바나 차바 자송 요리더니 양 인다는다 와 차바 망보 차송도 송 드나송아 도 간다라 대외도 쭉쭉 차야데 대리 송래 다 디그 드럼네 다 심진은 타면다와 송나 드나송 거요래 된 직딩 송고가 다 공방무서 대 가르스나 코와 시반데랑 따라던 코와는 중목의 이야당 코와스는 다대세계 인선 직딩 송고
담도 다대
로가
가려고 고바당
코와가 이해 요라
일단 고바 가봐
단 코와 시바데 코와데
고바당 고바기 시 다다리
데리노
So then in the bardo, one has this mental body, which is the name and four aggregates. And so now, regarding Jikten Sumgön's intention, and some people's refutation of that, that's saying that samsara has an end. So there's one example, story about Chenrezig. So when Chenrezig in the past came into the presence of the Buddha Amitabha, Chenrezig took a vow and said that I shall not attain complete enlightenment before all sentient beings are liberated from samsara. And if I develop along the way even the slightest self-concern, then may my head split into many pieces. So the Manigabum, which is the collected works of money, actually specify 100 pieces, and some others say many pieces. So anyways, that was his vow. And so then many sentient beings were liberated from suffering, but then at some point later, it says that he went to Mount Tale, the peak of Mount Tale. So, but actually he didn't really go somewhere. He was actually seeing through with his wisdom eyes within a state of meditative absorption. So what he saw was that there still are so many sentient beings. And when he saw that, he developed some sadness and he felt a little bit disheartened for having taken that vow. And in that moment where this feeling arose in him, his head split into, before that he thought maybe it's better if I attain the state of the Dharmakaya. So when he thought that, then his head split into these many pieces. And then the Buddha Amitabha appeared and he restored his head. But at that time, he restored his head to be 10 heads. And then the 10 heads were crowned by the Buddha Amitabha himself. And so this is how the 10 faced Chenrezig came into being. And so now, regarding Jikten Sumgön's actual intention, so he's saying that there's samsara. The reason for him saying that samsara is limitless is because there is samsara and there is the basis of samsara. And so he makes this statement by viewing those two distinctly, so separating samsara out from the basis of samsara.
당 코아 시반데 주미인소 주바메바 주바다 자와 주바 자와 세는데 다 니스미 바제나 맥바미 바제나 대답을 돈다 차도 요르와 코아 시반데 대답지리 소는 지tin 송공게 코안데 다 주바 자와 시반데 인고한 그다 가르차도 요르스나 제당 코아단 냥일은 대바 세반데 니스 요바 마리스 코아게 콘데 라프 도잡시 다 라바게 뇌다 잡다 차도 요런 콘데니데 라바 임발라 찍바 임발라 테니 데 나란초 ndere yechek dalamni no chasware ndela tine choryondu koa chayore choa sound nyangde chade yore se then do yakon kora de sewande tuba da chawaji chade yore so
So then Jikten Sumgön also says that samsara is without proliferation, without elaboration. And that means that it is non-dual or without reference point, non-referential. So what it means is that samsara and nirvana are non-dual. Or samsara and nirvana are like the back and the front of one hand, but it's still the same hand. So there is a single basis, but two paths have emerged. And that is, if the mind is confused, one is in samsara, and when confusion is cleared away, that is nirvana. And so this is how he had separated samsara from the basis of samsara. And so the basis of samsara is what is without proliferation.
Tandala teloba ke sone dedar nangwu chunam kunson tangara zol nangdo ke chun deda tamjie yin da yi hi nismi son ta nangwu chun deda dong to chu ji yin yi hi dang chun yin ge yi hi da nis yo ba ma re son ko nam do na zole dene dara de jarbu ko da yin jong son dan de ke dong da ji ba re jarbu ko da yin jong jarbu ko yi shi jong dan de 마도 되나 되네 다그 코하게 찾아오고 내가 찾아 배는 나랑 디그 주본데 저 올라서 당와야나요 마도 되나 마다부 풍부 찾아요라 되니 때서 또나 되니 다버게 랑이 때서 용거와 되니 담보들 마다시 되니 마다 다바다 되니 다바자 마다 다바다 힌드 남다 고람긴스 다 때문에 하장께 되네 다봉원 로그나는 지름지 야용은 빠나 담보 나랑 저거지 곰자도야 디 너공 요로와 동주 주본달라베 동바 동장 지름도 소마 곰봉원의 주보의 하장께 동장제 공여를 때 감득의 풍본달라 섬는 당와이나 तेसा तापा चाद योरवा तिनी ती कला ता लाक के खरसाला सुबा के समसिन के ना बाते या गोंद तिनी रेमजी लाक लंडवा ते ता चिबा चिजां चाद योरिस
So Kyobpa said that all appearing phenomena are indivisible from the Dharma sphere, the Dharma Dhatu. So the various samsaric thoughts arising are actually the form of Buddhas and their wisdom. But when one doesn't realize that, one is in samsara. So for example, if you just think about our body, in a state where we have not realized its nature, it is an impure aggregate. But when we realize it somewhat, then our perception becomes somewhat pure. So first there's an impure state. And then gradually as one practices, it becomes pure. And then it becomes utterly pure. So gradually we practice in this way. So when we practice a deity, for example, first the body becomes completely empty form. So before we visualize the deity, we empty this body. And at that time already, we have achieved some kind of purity. And then from that state, we generate the deity, we visualize the deity's form and the implements and so on. So it's the same with visualizing the deities or practicing the deities.
Tani orita de saraha trupchin saraha ke chuna tamje rang sen de semli yimbu chuna dorjami songwa dindo kowa dang nyangelen de ba hibande da tamje kandar susuk semla rale de yoba chad yoresi da da susu semla rale mbande teni ganda jen da hako go yori hubaina de la jubjum mala reba ke de rechong bala sumbare tsende dan sama bardo sum jik de drella dis chokso tsende dan sama bardo sum de da jik de drerso teni telen dis choksen da danang me tinhi tin komri chi go kol hubarwa de da wena de jebaina teni da do nyamsolong je pipe son malare ba re chongbala damdo damnangdo da de da wena je kowa shibanda ga ngo kowa de ngo ma hiba desido truke teni rangyin ba ngarangzo namjun je songko yora pe na me wob da yin ba teni dunga ke jamso ta yin ba tanda chi cha de yoris dan de rangyin de song dang de teni juba da jawa cha de yore de yimban de dara korang ji ngoni jewa me ba ngakba me ba neba me ba cha de 차도 요리스인데 차박 그 줌신데 ndo kunchotin le karesong yorisina kan yikin le jiba te ma jis de la jibaran yu ma yinso nekam churungo la jin zamna tin le ju de bandela dongo tola jiwa yo maris de la dik chani yang tini tang khowa shibande tini juba da jawa jinga som da jawa chadu yore
The Siddha Saraha had said, all phenomena are one's own mind. There is not a single phenomenon that does not arise from the mind. So all of samsara and nirvana, all phenomena are one's own mind. So how we can understand that was explained by Milarepa. He said to Drigung, you must bring together, you must combine into one this life, the bardo, and future lives through sustaining supreme mindful presence, as you mentioned before. So practice the meaning of this, my son. So when one doesn't know the nature of samsara, then one's mind is confusion. So there is examples given like then one is like in a fire pit, or one is in the ocean of samsara. And still, even though one is in samsara in this way, the very nature of samsara is without proliferation, without elaboration. So from samsara's nature itself, it is without arising, abiding, and cessation. In the Jewel Endowed Sutra, it says, whatever appears, whatever may appear as arising from something is only a temporary appearance. Ultimately, actually, nothing ever arises or abides or ceases to be. So, therefore, samsara is without proliferation. It is without arising, abiding, and cessation.
Teni dan de drubzi kowa shiba de la tomta mi ba ge drubzi de lopon dawa traba ke uman jupa na kare song yore shuna kowa toma tama mi mar toma dambo tama mi tamanta deda mi ben kowa ne toma tama mi bar ju rong tra ser malamte sin de te wini gang then Toma Dang Tama Mi Ba Dong Ba Ni Do Hi Din Ju Le Ni Ba Nye Sun Dan De Ge De.
And then a quote that establishes this point that samsara is is limitless without proliferation. So it says, Acharya Chandrakirti said in the Madhyamakavatara, since it has neither a first beginning nor a final end, samsara is said to be without beginning and end. This existence that lacking coming and going is like a dream, and thereby is inexistent, as is ascertained in the treatises, is said to be emptiness without beginning and end.
Sumgön sotar domsun rerende. Ya. Da de dorji son jobje ba dere. Sumgön sotar domsun rerende so. Sumgön sotar domsun rerende. Dan de ke da domba son는 취 탐제 다 domba son는 저 더용 거 요래. 취 탐제 domba son는 더용 반달라. 다 죽은 소탈 dom선을 시반데 알라 난도 다야 인기 기설때 중세 휴바이나 산제 좀 된데 그 추주 봉보 다 주로 본제트 기동송 바데 teni panzare panwala teni nimborere when sondu ta chuji pombo tamje ta de bari so da draven yin ro yuris.
And next is Vajra statement 18. Jikten Sumgön says here, each of the three vows, such as the Pratimoksha, combines all teachings. So all teachings, all dharma are included within each of the three vows. And that is in response to people's claim that the 84,000 dharma teachings that the Buddha taught are antidotes to the individual things one must abandon. And so therefore, all the teachings that the Buddha taught are distinct or separate.
Dan dikabs kare chade yurisina. Dan dorwakabje da kache sunya yorinde dorji song gyugapate ke hipcha chik sung ko yoride. Dan dela tara chobje bendinando gadram nis mandu baji mi song. ndurwa sotarna teni chu thamje da gadam nisum nanda mandu ba je yong yo mare song tega na yin ke chu thamje da darade tabhi nisum mandu ba yo mare song da tabhi nisum mandu ba me indu da tabhi ni de gandar sunang go chodan yi go choni sa banan do go yore te indu the jansam kalapa na chur doyong go yore so ta choni na mandu ba ka chu je dang je ga me de warwa teni da tenga tes nor ya de choni na mandu ba yo mare si ta ki ni de nga ra choni na mandu ba me ta ki ni nga ra do 초니는 만두바시 미두 다수난 그 조당 이히 그 초니는 만두바 추기 미두 데네 라바 장창 그 라바는 너는 거 넣어서 대하나 인게 탑히니스는 만두바 미두 데네 상하가 돈바나나 너는 거 요래 som가래 가인스나
소타르티라 소타
상하
소타 코랑 상하나 두여라
추탐제
추탐제
단데 다라 상하 그 값서 따지조는 만두바 요마레 소마레인다 지조 히반데 간다르 탑다 히라고랑 이 조름데 히라랑 이 차데 요르 지름데 탑고랑 이 차데 요르와 안데레
So about how this is explained from the perspective of the Vinaya, the next verse, number 19, explains that in greater detail. But here now in verse 18, all the dharmas of the three vows, all the dharmas are included within the Vinaya because all the dharmas practice virtue and abandon non-virtue. So therefore there's no dharma that is not included within practicing virtue and abandoning non-virtue. And then secondly, also we must accumulate the twofold accumulation of merit and wisdom. And that is how all the dharmas are included within the bodhisattva yana, because there is no dharma that does not include the accumulations of merit and wisdom. So therefore they are all included in the bodhisattva yana too. And then thirdly, all dharmas are included within method and wisdom. So there is no teaching that doesn't teach method and wisdom. And that's the essence of the Vajrayana vows, the secret mantrayana vows. And therefore all teachings are also complete within the secret mantrayana. In the secret mantrayana, all practices basically consist of the generation and completion stages. And the nature of generation and completion is method and wisdom. The generation stage is the essence of method, skillful means, and the completion stage is wisdom. So therefore all phenomena, also all dharmas, also naturally are included within the secret mantrayana.
다 때인데 취탐제 다 도바선번은 저 ndoko 요래 송바래 되니다 도바선 히반데 다라디 ndorwa kapso sosataba dombatin zowen songyong yore ndodi kapso de tarade tingin jelaba zowe songyong yore tene ngoba kapso tene hirab jelaba zowe songyong yodu tene ta dik sumbo nang dana mandubake tene sanje ge chu 지 요마레소 단데 탐지 철던데 데네 상황하지 값서 데 탑데 히람이는 철던로 요리 탑지브르는 바당 히랍 조브르는 바소 데니는 나만도 용거 요리 데인데 나란소 Chun de la drupdang ke tone tene tabla mambu chi yone yang drupja tarto kin drewe te tene ngarang chulan drubya kin drewe te che yimba sanje chi gomang te yimba tene pang goya ke pang ju kurang ke lasang na tama ina yang tarto ngarang chu ke mishi pa marik pa nda pang go yo bare korba tsawa marik pa cha de yorwa nda indu korwe dube chu tamje marik pa nda de yore nyangin len de chu tamje tene ta tara ngarang chu de ke lapa sumbo na chondo yong go yores.
So all the dharmas are therefore included within those 3 vows. In the context of the Vinaya teachings, the main focus are the pratimoksha vows, or the training in ethical discipline. Then for the sutra section, the main training is the training of samadhi. And in the Abhidharma section, the main training is the training of wisdom. And there is no dharma that the Buddha taught that is not included within those 3. And so therefore, also ultimately, all of these dharmas are included within method and wisdom, and therefore within the secret mantrayana. So the generation stage is the method, and the completion stage is wisdom. So therefore, even though there are many different practices, many different methods to practice the path of Dharma, the ultimate result is a single one, and that is to attain enlightenment. Now, when we think about what needs to be abandoned, for example, ultimately, what needs to be abandoned is our ignorance. This unawareness, this ignorance is the seed of samsara, the root of samsara. So therefore, all phenomena, or all dharmas of samsara are included within ignorance. And all dharmas of nirvana are included within those 3 higher trainings.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Jambar Bavi Jadaran Jeba Tang Kunda Sambo Deyan Dejan De Da Kunja Jizu Dalu Giwan De Da Tamje Rabdu Ngo Chancho Sunjo Rambo Je Maji Banan Ji Jiba Nyamba Memba Yang Kona Kondo Bewa Jo Pama Sunjin Tamje Dedan Denjer Je Ngendo Tamje Dadu Tumara Jo Sanjo Samba Kanda Sacho Ba De Da Kunja Molan Raba Jo Samje Nepa Chinye Ba Nirda Nela Taja Jingduwe Nena Male Ba Dadan Jongwa Me Ba Jo. May every being ailing with the disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed.